Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bread of Life channel. Today, I'm here with Oskar, and we're going to be discussing my favorite movie, The Tree of Life. It was written and directed by Terrence Malick, and Terrence Malick, he did a stunning portrayal of God in this movie, and for me, it is the best depiction of God that I've seen in any art form. So I've been dying to talk about this movie with someone, and Oskar and me wanted to have another conversation. So we just decided to discuss this movie. So I'm anxious to hear Oskar's thoughts about it and share my thoughts as well. So, and if you guys haven't seen the movie, please do go watch it. We're going to talk about the whole movie here. So, if you don't like spoilers, then don't watch it. But honestly, I still don't think it would spoil the movie because it's such an incredibly beautiful movie that we're not going to do it justice in this conversation. But welcome, Oskar. Good to see you.
Well, thank you. It's fun to be back. I don't even think I lived here last time we chatted, so it's fun.
Cool. Yeah. And so Oskar is also, you kind of say that you're agnostic, or do you go say you're atheist or agnostic?
Yeah. No, I would say I don't believe. I believe God doesn't exist, so that would be atheist, right?
Okay.
Like I,
So,
I I'm not claiming
yeah.
100%, but yeah, that's the way I live.
Right. So this kind of makes it interesting because for me, this movie is a beautiful portrayal of God. So I'm really interested to hear Oskar's reaction to, you know, what he thinks is like the depiction of God in this movie. So let me just start by giving you guys a synopsis of the movie. I'm going to try not to say too much about it, but I'm just going to show these slides. This is the main character in the movie. This is Jack, and you have adult Jack here, but throughout the movie, we mostly see Jack as a child. At the beginning of the movie, this is where it starts with Jack asking the question. Well, actually, he says, "Mother, brother, it was them who led me to your door." And then we kind of discover what that means throughout the movie. This is Jack's mother as a child, and she's talking about what the nuns taught her, that there are two ways of life, the way of nature and the way of grace. And so throughout the movie, we have these ways of life being portrayed throughout the movie. The way of nature is seeking to please yourself. And the way of grace is forgiveness, being willing to be disliked and insulted, and to take things as they are. In the movie, there are portrayals of the way of nature and the way of grace. You see Jack, this is young Jack. He portrays the way of nature. His brother portrays the way of grace. And we also see the way of nature and the way of grace in mother and father throughout the movie. Mother chooses the way of grace. She commits herself to the way of grace. And then you see her way of following the way of grace being challenged when she receives news that her 19-year-old son has died in the war. Jack is reflecting on that as an adult. He's shown wandering out in the wilderness. And throughout the movie, we're kind of replaying we're going through Jack's spiritual journey, searching for God. Mother is grieving over the loss of her son and asking God questions. And then for about 15 minutes in the movie, it's kind of God speaking through creation. Then you have scenes of, this is Jack's early life. You have beautiful scenes of birth, childhood, and this is portrayal of family life. There's strained relations between the father and his kids, and then generally a good relationship between the kids and their mother. But the father, there's always this tension with the relationship with the father. Jack he kind of goes through a journey of kind of waffling between following the way of nature and the way of grace. There's whenever the mother is portrayed, there's like a supernatural kind of element, and when the father, it's more of like there's all these pictures of industry and kind of like a natural or like worldly way of approaching life. Here you have kids that are in a swimming hole. This is a major turning point in the movie. This movie is one of the major themes is dealing with the problem of evil, which is why I wanted to talk to Oskar about it, because I know one of Oskar's biggest hindrances to belief in God is the problem of evil. And this movie deals with it really well. Here you have children swimming, and in this scene, one child dies. And then you have a bunch of other scenes of like horrible things like that Jack observes happening in the world. And Jack kind of turns to following the way of nature. He shoots his brother with a BB gun. Here's his brother forgives him and they reconcile. Then you have
the brother's name RJ or something?
Yeah, I think RL. RL. Yeah. And so there's 3 boys in the family. RL is the second brother, and I think that's significant in the movie. Significant symbolism. Here, young Jack is leading adult Jack. This is toward the end of the movie. He's leading him, and we find that he brings him to this place of gathering where everyone is gathered together at the end. Here, this is the mother kind of letting go of her son. This is the son that died in the war, but it's showing him as a child. This is RL, one of the main ones, the second son, who has died in the war at age 19. And so this is toward the end of the movie where she's kind of, you see her releasing him. And then you see these scenes of the mother. You see her holding out her hands, and then she says, I give him to you. I give you my son. And then you see sunflowers, then you see some buildings, you see adult Jack, and then you see a bridge. And so there's so much symbolism in this movie. And I mean, there's a lot in it. And I think it's all meaningful, and it's all very profound when you really get what is being conveyed. But I'm just going to start with kind of getting Oskar's response to the movie. So Oskar, overall, what did you think of the movie?
So I've only seen the movie once, and I'm I read some of the Bible, but I haven't read it all, so I don't get like all the symbolism stuff maybe. It felt like such a Rebecca movie, like in some sense. Like I totally understand why you like it, and I thought it was really cool. I like the creation portion, and it's fun to contrast that with like the focusing on one family. There's probably a lot I didn't understand. Like some of the questions you sent me, I was like, I don't know the answer to this. Like, and I think we just think about things very differently. I think you're very much like this whole picture, like you look at the completeness of everything, and I'm very much like a detailed person.
Okay. Well, then this is going to be really fun. So I'm going to hit you with the questions I sent you, and then I will love to share how I saw it after I hear from you. So what did you think about the phrase uttered at the beginning of the movie? Brother, mother, it was they who led me to your door.
So I thought this was I think the brother is RL and the mother is the they sort of showed the way of grace, right? I mean, they like if you have this option between nature and grace, and the father is more like way of nature, I think, and I think he had a lot of like potential to go down that path. You see like him struggling a lot with sexual desires and violence. Yeah, but I think like those people inspire him to like walk the narrow path away. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, what do you think about the idea of those two paths, the way of nature and the way of grace?
I mean, it's a way of talking about the world. I mean, I tend to see it more like in focusing on like long and short term desires. Like if you always focus on like carnal pleasures and you're trying to do whatever's most fun in the moment, yeah, I think there are some destructive tendencies to that way of life. And I think that is like closer to the way of nature, where it's like a lot of power and like, yeah. So I mean, I see it as a way of talking about things. That's a bit useful, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll just read out what the description from the movie of the way of grace and the way of nature. The way of grace doesn't try to please itself, accepts being forgotten, disliked, accepts insults and injuries. The way of nature wants to please itself and get others to please it too, likes to lord it over them, to have its own way, to find reasons to be unhappy when all the world is shining around it and love smiling through all things. By the way, whenever I watch this movie, I just start like crying at that part, and at many parts throughout the movie. But so what did you think about how the movie wrestles with the problem of evil?
I mean, I didn't get why this was like a good response. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I want to hear your opinion about it. So,
I mean, it's
what
not
did you feel the movie's response to the problem of evil was?
So I mean, it was a lot about like us choosing the way of grace, and yeah, I understand. And then there's also this like allusions to Job when when Job has sat down and he's like, I mean, the devil has done his number on him a lot.
Yeah.
And Job is like, why? Like, God, like, you have to like calm down and like tell me why this is happening now. Like, just like kill me or tell me why. And then there's this really strange scene that doesn't at all like fit my version of like a loving God, where God is just like, I did this, I did this, I did, like, where were you? You don't know anything. Like, and in my head, it's like, God is like, shut up, you don't know anything. Look how powerful I am. And I never liked that response. And so there was something similar to that. Like, I like the movie's version a lot better, but like showing like, oh yeah, all this sad stuff is happening, but look how like grand the cosmos is. And yeah, I don't know. That's
and actually that was the quote at the beginning of the movie before the movie starts. It quotes from God responding to Job in the way that you don't like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean,
which is interesting because I always loved God's response to Job.
Yeah, I mean,
like
people are
when
different.
I read that, I'm like, yes. And so
I must say that I felt that way several times. I'm a programmer by trade, and you program like some massive complicated thing, and someone comes in like, there's a small fault there. You're like, you do it. Like, like I felt that way for sure. I just don't think I was the best person in that moment.
Right. Yeah. Cool. The second part of that question about the problem of evil is, do you think it offers a satisfactory response to the problem of evil?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it explains why it's happening. God is like, yeah, you do it. I don't know. It doesn't feel as satisfactory to me, I guess. But our hearts are a bit different, I guess. I mean,
well, it may this may also be because you've only seen the movie once and I've seen it like 15 times. So I've like analyzed it so much. So I will share what the movie's response is later, what I think the response is and why I think it is a great response. Okay, so next question. What did you think of the depiction of creation? Like, and God's speech through creation?
I don't remember this part really well. Like I really enjoyed the visuals. I was more like, oh, this is so beautiful. Like look at all the things. Look at the first act of love between the dinosaur that doesn't want to. Spoilers. But I don't really remember that much of like what God is speaking about, because I was more like I really thought it was so cool, like showing, like it's insane when you think about how much has happened. I mean,
Yeah, and it's really, really stunning, and the music is really powerful. So this is for me, a beautiful portrayal of creation, even though it's kind of portraying it from like an evolutionary perspective, which I don't agree with.
Yeah, I actually thought about that.
Really? I mean, but he does it in such a beautiful way that I get on board with his vision of creation. It's quite grand and beautiful. So
I mean,
yeah.
it's a bit like cool in a way. Like if I were a theist, I think it's very fitting that humans were like, oh, how old is the universe? Maybe it's like 10,000 years, and God is like, no, you're not even close. Like it's so much grander than you think. Like it's not 10, like it's billions. Like you can't even imagine. Yeah, I like the idea of like humans trying to understand it, and he's like, it's way bigger.
Yeah,
I think that's a cool idea.
So I think he does a good job portraying the creation. And then, so which character in the movie do you think most represents what God is like?
So I went back and forth. At first, I thought about the mother, who was like the way of grace, was kind of personified. But I think maybe RL is more like the type of person I would think it is. Like it is something about him. I don't know.
What about the mother and RL? What about them seems like it would be like what God is like? If, of course, imagining that this good and loving God exists.
Wait, so you're imagining that this God exists? I mean, I don't know. I just find like the character that they portray, like their personality, is akin to the kind of best personality I can imagine, which is supposed to be God. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious. Maybe you're like, no, obviously none of them. It's this guy.
Well, no, I think both of them are God in this movie. The mother is actually portraying Father God. And so, and this is why this movie is so incredibly brilliant, is because whenever the mother is talking, she's like, and she's wrestling with the problem of evil. Like, to me, it is absolutely brilliant how it's like also the father talking. So I'll show you some of the phrases that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's very incredible the way Terrence Malick pulled this off, because he kept her as the mother wrestling with the problem of the loss of her son, the problem of evil. But through that, he's also giving messages from the father. So she represents Father God. RL represents Christ.
Yeah, I mean, there's that makes sense. I guess one thing that's weird with me, and that's maybe because you have like this dual role where she's both God and she's also just the mother, is when she like I think the father like tries to be violent with the son, and she like tries to stop him, and he's like no, and he's like it's a very rough scene, and I guess I don't imagine God like losing in that way, or like him getting like tackled by nature or something.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because the father represents the way of nature, but I also think he represents the view that some people have of God. And
for sure.
And so in some, where they view God as a demanding father, as a father who's never pleased, as a father who's like forcing his way, and a father who's quick to be angry. And so I love that scene where the father is kind of like wrestling with the mother, and she's fighting him, and she can't get free, because I feel like that is like often a portrayal of what is happening in the spiritual realm, where the father is trying to make himself known as he truly is, but this horrible image of God and the way of nature is like winning out, over the father revealing himself.
I was talking to some friends a while ago about cosmic dualism, where you have like not just like there is the one God and he's like super more powerful than everyone, but you have like two people. So I think some Christians actually have this view where like the devil is like an opponent to God. Like it's not like an easy fight where God can like with his pinky just like defeat Satan wherever they want. But when it's like it's a real struggle, right? So I mean, it would also make more sense on that view, where you're like, yeah, evil it's not like this thing. Yeah, God is not like just infinitely more powerful and can do whatever he wants. Like it's a real fight.
Yeah, that's how I view the world. But
I thought so.
Yeah, but I would say this, like, if God wanted to destroy the devil, he could instantly with his power. But
just like lock him up, you can.
Yeah, but because of the way that God has set up the world, he doesn't like take control in that way, because God has actually given real power to other beings. And so because God has given real power to other beings, he doesn't just yank back that power every time it's abused. So in that way, Satan does have power. We have power. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I think that if someone were like bad enough, that maybe you wouldn't let them control other people in that way, right? I mean, if there's some raging like murder on the loose, I think it makes sense for us to like, yeah, you don't get to have a knife. Like we want you to have free will, we really do, but you're gonna live here now. And I would expect God to do something like that. Like, hey, Satan,
right.
I'm gonna remove all your like supernatural powers. You can be just a normal like dude. That's fine. But yeah, I'm gonna get rid of some of your like superpowers because you're really doing damage here.
Yeah, and I think that again goes back to the programmer issue, where it's like somebody's criticizing part of your work, and you're like, yeah, but I have a reason for that. Go ahead and do it yourself if you think you could do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. Like, I actually have a reason for it. Like, if I ask God, and he's like, no, actually, it's really cool. I actually have it, and then he explains it. Like, if he explains it, then I'm fine with it. I'm just not. Yeah, it doesn't seem like. Yeah. But if it's like, oh, I never thought about that, then
yeah. Taffy says, not heard of this film, but I'm staying home tomorrow as Huge Storm is coming. I'm going to watch it. Great. Yeah, you'll love it. And I wanted to put up this comment too from Dr. Joel Duff. He says, absolutely one of the best films of all times, not just as an expression of theism, so many provocative themes. So glad other people are recognize the just.
Have you seen the extended cut?
This film. Yeah, he says there's an extended cut. I haven't seen that, but definitely would love to watch that.
It has the creation in real time. So you can...
Well, Terrence Malick, I think some of those scenes were part of, he wanted to do like this whole film that was just the creation. And I don't know if he did that or not, but that was one of his projects that he had worked on. So where am I? Do you identify with Jack in any ways?
I mean, you mean Jack as a kid or like
in the character? Yeah, as an adult or a kid.
I mean, I think we all struggle with like thoughts of like wanting to punch people when they're small, or like sexual things. I mean, of course, I think everyone can like recognize that. I wasn't a troublesome boy growing up. I was kind of meek.
Oh, that's nice.
But yeah, I mean, I recognize some aspects of that. Like, it's always a struggle to be like, oh, I can do this thing that's fun now, or I can do, yeah, this like thing that's technically better, but like, I'm not gonna see the results for a long time. So in those way, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love how Jack is wrestling with the problem of evil throughout the movie. So I thought you might identify with him in that way, because he does a lot of questioning God throughout the movie.
Yeah, I mean, the problem of evil is a big thing, right? It's not like my main thing against God, which is strange. It usually is, I guess. But yeah, I haven't really wrestled with it. I guess if I was a theist, I would be wrestling with it, right? But to me, I mean, it makes sense that some things are just shitty. Uh, I think the world is kind of indifferent to us, but we have to love each other. So, yeah.
So, where is my next question? What did you think of the scene with the mom in the coffin in the forest?
I don't have many thoughts on this, which made me excited. Like, yeah, it looks a bit like Snow White. Maybe there's some Oedipus things going on there. Loving, yeah. But yeah, I didn't have many thoughts on this. I'm really excited to hear.
Cool. Well, I don't want to say it yet because I
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
want to go through the slides and share like my view, like as I go through that. So, what did you think of the end scenes of the sunflowers and the bridge?
There's two bridges in the book, I think. It's like one bridge in the beginning, like a short bridge where he walks over in the sun and it's kind of easy breezy. And then there's like this really long, maybe daunting like bridge at the end. So I don't know. It's
Ooh.
I thought that was interesting. I don't really know what it means, but like you cross the bridge and you don't know where you're going and stuff like that. And the sunflowers, I didn't really get anything from that. I'm like, maybe just beautiful nature compared to like city.
That's really interesting. I never thought about the bridge that he crosses at the beginning. I have to go back and like kind of think about that. And why do you think that I think this movie is a great depiction of God?
Well, I sort of mentioned it, but I think you're kind of like the whole picture kind of person when you like to like zoom out and see everything. And this movie really does that. It's like here are details, like here is this family, and then it's like, but like here's everything. So I would guess that's what you like about the movie. Like it's not, yeah. It's very personal. I think you like the grace nature divide. That seems like Rebecca. Yeah, I don't know. That's my
Okay, well, I will give you my thoughts now. So, at the beginning, we're told, Jack says, "Brother, mother, it's they who led me to your door," right? And so the mother talks about the way of grace, and then the what she says is that she says, "No one who loves the way of grace ever comes to a bad end." And in that scene, they're showing RL. Okay. And this isn't the scene because I couldn't get a picture of that scene, but it shows RL and it says, they say no one who loves the way of grace ever comes to a bad end. Now, what's ironic about that is that RL is going to be the one who comes to a bad end, right? Because he dies at 19 years old in the war. So right after she says, no one who loves the way of grace ever comes to a bad end, the mother says, I will be true to you, whatever comes. So the mother, and this is where I'm saying the beauty of how the mother is speaking as the mother, but it's also the father speaking. The mother is committing herself to the way of grace. So she's saying, I will be true to you, the way of grace, no matter what comes. But this is also the Father God saying, I will be true to you, whatever comes. Now, right away, this is challenged because, of course, we have right after the mother is committing herself to that, it flashes forward to when she receives the news of her son dying in the war. So people are offering her comfort. Here's Jack looking back and thinking about his brother and wandering in the desert. But here's the mother, and she's trying to comfort herself with scripture. She's reciting, I will fear no evil, you're with me. But then she also has her doubts. And remember, this is a flash forward. So she's already lived out this way of grace. She has already been this picture of complete love and grace. She has grace for her husband, even when he's kind of a jerk. And she's always like just this beautiful picture of love and joy and happiness and peace. So she's really lived out this way of grace. And now here she is, seeing that, this thing that she believed that no one would ever come to a bad end if they follow the way of grace. Now she's seen the worst happen, her son die. And so she says she's trying to comfort herself, but then these doubts are creeping in, like, what did you gain? Like, so, this doubt in her head says, what did you gain? Like, how did you, what was the point of living that way? And so, then after that, we start seeing the scenes of creation where it's God speaking through creation. This is his answer to her. And this is also where it's so beautiful because it is both the mother as herself speaking, and it's also Father God speaking from heaven. So the mother whispers, was I false to you? And so she's asking God, was I really being false? Is that why this is happening? Was I false to you? And, but it's also Father God saying to Jack, who was wandering in the wilderness, was I false to you? And then the mother asks, Lord, where were you? And, did you know? Who are we to you? Answer me. And then here's another place where the mother and Father God are both speaking. She says, we cry to you, my soul, my son, hear us. But this is also Father God from heaven saying, my soul, my son, hear us. So the Father is, saying, like, look, we are crying out to you. Look, this is my soul, my son. I like hear what I'm saying through my son. And so, meaning Christ, who has been given for us. And then the mother again says, light of my life, I search for you, my hope, my child. So she's crying out for her child. But this is also Father God crying out to us, the lost, these lost little humans that he loves. And he's saying, you're the light of my life. I search for you. I hope my child, like he's calling us child. So then we have sorry, is this getting boring?
No, that's really cute.
Okay. So then, through this whole thing, Jack as an adult is, he's searching about how his mother, he's kind of like reflecting on how his mother and brother led him to God. So this is what adult Jack says. You spoke to me through her. You spoke with me from the sky, the trees, before I knew I loved you, before I believed in you. So he says, when did you first touch my heart? And then it shows these, after Jack asked that, then you have all these scenes of life, birth, and, like family life, and all the ways that God was revealed to Jack throughout his life, throughout the beauty and things that he experienced of family life. But then there was also, these times in family life that were difficult. And so there was this relationship with his father. So his father is like disappointed in him. Did you put the runners in like I asked? Kind of giving him an uncomfortable hug, and like, so even though he's having all these experiences with, the father's love, he's also hearing, his father's testimony is also speaking to him, right? So, young Jack whispers, "Mother, make me good, brave." And then we have the mother, it shows the mother flying. And so like, there's these scenes throughout the movie, but I love this one of the mother flying, because this kind of shows, like, to me, that like, this is what it's like living in the presence of God, knowing his beauty, and there's a supernatural quality to it. So it seems that whenever the mother is doing things, there's this supernatural quality to it. There's like, there's like just a depth to life, a joy to life. And then that's throughout the movie, it's contrasted with like the father's life, which is always about industry. And, you see these like images of him at work with all these machines and like desire to like get ahead in life. And you just see the contrast between like two ways of viewing life, where like you see the lens of like life as like full of beauty and joy and mystery and love and all these things. And then you see this other picture of life that's just like forces you to focus on like things that are just mechanical, and there's no real life in them, And this is kind of how I view naturalism. Like, I absolutely hate naturalism with a passion. I think it's like the worst thing that you can do to yourself is to believe in naturalism, because it just...
What is your understanding of naturalism?
Well,
I'm just curious. It's
just the view that there is nothing more to what we see and experience than something that has been brought about by a natural process, right? Like, it's a very just limited way of viewing the world, and I think it strips everything good out of life. So this is the contrast that I'm seeing here. What do you want to say about that?
I don't think, humans are still on naturalism, so I don't think everything good is gone. I guess maybe I wonder sometimes, like, if you became a naturalist, you would see that everything that you cared about was still there. I think you would see like, like there's a different explanation for these things, but they're still here. They still have like all the characteristics that you know and love.
Right. Yeah. But that's because, Oskar, whether you believe in him or not, God is real. And he is what is making all these things possible. So it's just a matter of, like, if I was a naturalist, could I still experience the things I do now? Yes. because God would still be real.
I'm more talking like if naturalism actually is true.
Yeah.
If you when you think like, oh, how would the world be if naturalism were true? I think you start like taking away a bunch of stuff. You're like, okay, so this love thing that I have now, like that's gone. And you like take away things, and then you look at this like gray world that you leave behind. You're like, that's not good. But like that's not the hypothesis, right? The hypothesis is that the love and all the things they are here. So like naturalism would be just the same, I guess.
Well, and if you look at the father's life, he still got to, he was still enjoying some of what was like, what life was.
Yeah, I mean, he has some character flaws for sure.
Well, yeah. But
I think it's interesting that he's
yeah,
a musician, though. Like, I think that's fun. Like,
yeah.
he could just be like this. Like, if I would have casted him, I would like, oh yeah, like making a business person or something. I think it's fun that they're like, no, it's fun. He really likes music, and yeah.
Oh, gross! I have to delete some stuff from here. Sorry, I have to block a weird person. But anyway, so the outsider humanist says that's all the cheap shots for now. Gotta go, have fun, everyone. Oh, I'm sorry I offended you. Just my opinion. I listen to a lot of people's opinions on here, so I hope that mine can also be heard. But yeah, I see what you're saying. It's just that when I hear people talking, like when people who do believe in naturalism, when I hear them talking about the world, it just so gross to me. It's very, like I said, it just makes me feel gross. So it's, but again, this is just my perspective being shared here. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would probably feel the same if I were a theist. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so then we have this scene where in this scene a child drowns. And this is really the turning point for Jack as a child, because Jack has, so far he hasn't really chosen a path of the way of nature or the way of grace. Right? He's kind of been exposed to the way of nature and the way of grace, and he hasn't really chosen a path. But this is like a pivotal scene where, this child drowns, and then Jack whispers, like, was he bad? Like, why? Like, and then that's when we see the mother dead in the forest, right? In a coffin in the forest. So this is when Jack's picture of God dies. Like when he sees that child drown. Okay, that's when, Jack, and right after this scene, Jack says, "Where were you? You let a boy die. You'll let anything happen." So Jack can no longer see God as a good and loving father. He can no longer, his vision of God and the way of grace dies, because he now sees God as, hey, you let this boy die. And now, he can no longer see God in the way he used to see. And so then we get more visions of Jack. Jack sees more things happening, like, there's an image of a house on fire and a boy who got burned in the back of his head. And so Jack is faced with more horrible things that happen in the world. And then you have this scene of like this truck spraying DDT, this poison, and
children are like jumping in the smoke because it's fun. Yeah.
Right. And so here are more images of God letting horrible things happen. Right. And so, now not only is Jack really wrestling with, Jack's image of God is dead, but also ours. We are presented as the viewer. We are presented with all the realities of life and the most horrible things that happen. right? And so it really draws us into saying, God, why do you let these things happen? Did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. And so at that point, but let me just go ahead and say how I think this is resolved in the end. Well, I'll save that till the end, I guess. Okay, so after, Jack's kind of image of God dies, he starts to choose the way of nature. So you see him like with these scenes of he's starting to like be cruel to animals. He's, just kind of like being rebellious toward his mother. He yells at his mother, "I'm not going to do what you say." And so this is like Jack rebelling, and going the way of nature. So in this scene, Jack has a BB gun, and he tells his brother, "Put your hand on it," and he shoots his brother in the hand with the BB gun. He shoots RL. So this is kind of the culmination of Jack following the way of nature. And the beautiful thing is that then you have this scene of, Jack and RL. This is after Jack shot RL. And this is where we see how,
Grace.
this is where we see RL being the Christ figure, because RL now, he's faced with, am I going to forgive him, or what am I going to do? And in this scene, Jack hands RL a board and says, "Go ahead, hit me if you want to." And instead, RL just, loves him and forgives him. And so this is, RL is our Jesus figure that's, showing us the love and forgiveness of God, that even when we have wronged him, he forgives. So we have like Jack still wandering in the wilderness, but his younger self, like Jack is earlier on whispering, like, how do I get back? How do I turn back from this way of nature? How do I get back to you? And he's like, what was it that you showed me? Like, what did you show me there with my brother? What did you show me? And Jack also says, like, "Father, mother, you always wrestle inside me." So Jack is always still wrestling with, the vision of his mother and father. And then younger Jack says to older Jack, "Follow me." And young Jack leads grown-up Jack. And then you see people coming out of the grave. You see this joyful gathering on the beach. And then, you even see like the mother. Okay, well, you see like the mother touching someone's hand, like a withered hand, like an elderly hand, and then the hand is coming back healed, and they're having this joyful reunion. And even the father, earlier in the movie, the father had kind of repented of his way of following nature, and turned. So there's so much in this movie. I'm like trying to make a logical progression, but it's really hard to hold it. But this is the most significant part of the movie is here. And this is, where we see this is the end of the movie. And throughout the movie, you've had the mother still wrestling with the loss of her son. And here you see the mother finally like releasing her son out into the wilderness. And so she says, she opens her hands and she says, "I give him to you. I give you my son." And so this is the mother surrendering, her lost son into God's hands. But more significantly, this is God the Father saying, "I give him to you. I give you my son." So this is God the Father's ultimate gift of love to us, is that he is willing to give us his son. And so you have then right after God says, I give you my son, you have this beautiful picture of the sunflowers, which is once God, yes, sons. So God giving his son made many sons, right? Like Jesus is the firstborn of God's sons. So through God giving us his son, there are many, many more sons that are born.
Beautiful pun. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have Jack kind of like looking at this, industrial world, this, the epitome of like the way of, seeking your own way in the world. And then, he's kind of wrestling and he's, then you see the bridge. And so he's, choosing to take the bridge, like that his mother and his brother have kind of, provided for them in their, in the way that they have led him to God. He's letting them, their testimony of God, who he is, win out. And so, that's how he comes back to God. But the way that I think this, I love the way that they do the problem of evil, because it really does kind of bring it, bring the reality of, the just what we experience with evil and suffering. So it really brings that to the forefront. But I think the resolution to the problem of evil is actually at the beginning of the movie, when it says, no one who loves the way of grace will ever come to a bad end. And that is a promise that we have from God. No one who loves the way of grace will ever come to a bad end. And the following line says, I will be true to you, whatever comes. And that is the Father saying, he's not saying that bad things aren't going to come. Bad things are going to come in this world. But he's saying, I will be true to you, whatever comes. So the Father is going to be true to us. No matter what we suffer in this life, he will be true. And RL didn't come to a bad end.
Yeah,
and
he came to the best place ever, right? Super Disneyland.
Yeah. And even Christ, RL as the Christ figure, because in the movie, RL is the one who dies. He's the one who looks like he's coming to a bad end. And Jesus Christ, he looks like he's coming to a bad end when he dies on the cross, right? But he, there's another part of the story. And so, yeah.
I guess it's very easy to like forget that Christians, like if you're Christian, like death, like that's like the best part. That's where it starts. Woo. Like our life here is valuable as well, but like that's just a better, it's easy to forget that, because like you Christians, you act just as non-Christians. When people die, you get sad, you like try everything to like prevent it and like help people live longer. So it's very easy to forget that. Like it seems like that's a bad end for me, and like the Christian is crying, it's just like, oh, but then it's just super party time for the Christian. Yeah,
it's curious. I'm one of the, now I don't think this should have to be every Christian's reaction to death, but honestly, I don't get sad when people die.
I mean, that makes sense given what you believe. The other people that confuse me.
Yeah, I mean, my grandmother, before she died, and my grandmother suffered horribly before she died. She had cancer, and she really, was in a lot of pain before she died. But she said, like, when you have my funeral, do not be sad. I want my funeral to be like a party. I want people to be happy. I want people there to be joy.
Yeah. Was this teacher that we had that died of cancer when he was like 60 or something, and it says it's very, very sad. Like they had quite recently gotten a kid and stuff, so he wasn't like, he didn't have his whole life and then it like died at the end. like it was abrupt and it was in the middle. But since it was cancer, he knew before, and he did the exact same thing. I was like, my funeral is gonna be like a happy thing, and yeah, I like that. It was a very, very good funeral. I can imagine yours was as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did hearing my thoughts on it change your thoughts about this movie at all?
I mean, it's cool. Like you watched the movie many more times than I guess. Like I saw the mother as like a god character. Like it wasn't my top two, but it was fun to hear like how the codes could work, quite like literally as well as the father. It was cool. Um, yeah. I mean, the problem evil stuff is there's not much to say about that, I guess. Um, but you still like try to prevent people from like if let's say
Oh, of course.
I have two nieces. They're
Yeah.
one is 1 year old, one is 3 year old. And if I left you alone with them like picnicking on a cliff, you would like try your darnest to like make sure that they didn't fall off.
Oh,
like
of course.
that is still
Of
is a really
course.
like horrible thing for you.
Well,
for
of
some
course,
reason.
because there is great value in the life that we have here. And that's one of the things I like about this movie is because it actually shows you it like kind of like refreshes me when I watch it about the beauty of life. Because sometimes you can get really bogged down. Oh, Dapper Dinosaur, thanks for being here. Appreciate you watching. You can get like daily life can seem mundane. Like sometimes life becomes like, okay, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna go to work, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
And things can seem kind of dreary. But what I love about this movie is it kind of captures the beauty of life, and like it captures like what's important. It captures like the essence of life. It kind of like reminds you about the beautiful potential that's there every day. And it's kind of like through everyday experiences. It's just like an everyday experience of a family, but there's like this essence that's captured there that just reminds me about the importance of every moment and like the beauty in every moment.
Yeah.
And
I think someone I downloaded like a meditation app, and it's really cool to meditate. I recommend it to people. And one of the like meditation things was it was like I was meditating and like listening to like this weird noise that my fridge made, and it like found it like so beautiful, like just like sitting still, like being in the present and like focusing on that like weird annoying sound. Like even that is beautiful if you're like in the right kind of mode, I guess.
oh wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's cool. Living in the present, it's neat. Uh, about the cliff example, this was like one of the things that I've been meaning to ask you, because like I see like humans are very loving to each other and animals and stuff, but I see like the world at large as being sort of indifferent to us. Like the world doesn't also care about me, and I'm fine with that. I mean, so I'm thinking if I were at the picnic with like my nieces and you, and like I had to like go to a restroom or I had to like answer a phone call, I would feel. Imagine this picnic is like close to a high cliff or something, and something that I would feel secure leaving them with you. Like you seem like a lovely person. I'm sure you would like prevent them from falling down or something. But I wouldn't like if you weren't there. I wouldn't feel secure just leaving them with like the world.
Right.
And I get the feeling that no one, like everyone, thinks this way. No one is like, well, God exists. He's gonna do whatever's best. Like if the kids fall, then it was meant for them to fall. Like if they don't, that's good too. Like I leave them in. And it seems like nobody thinks that way. But I sort of think that you should think that way. Like that's the way I would think. Like if the world truly does care about my nieces, like it would feel strange. Like why wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I'm leaving in a loving person's hands.
Well, there are many theists who do think that way. Now, I don't, and I'll tell you why I don't in a minute. But for example, many of my Muslim friends do think that way, and that's why they don't wear seatbelts, and they don't like worry. They'll like stick their baby in like the dashboard on the car, while it's driving. Like, there's like, because, and they'll like kind of drive recklessly, because they have this idea about destiny, and so they feel that if it is their day to die, then they will die. But and if God doesn't want them to die, then God will protect them. So many theists in the world do think that way. But I wear my seatbelt. Why? Because I don't see the world as a place that God is in control of. So I don't think that the Bible talks about God being in control. Now, it does talk about God's power and God's ability to help us, but it doesn't say that God is in control of the world. And in fact, Jesus said Satan is the God of this world. Okay. So I think of this world as sort of a battleground of good and evil. And I want to help keep myself, safe in practical ways and in spiritual ways. You know what I mean? So like, I don't see it in that way. I see it as a place where a lot of danger exists. And, so, and there's always.
So like leaving them alone is sort of leaving them with Satan. In some sense. Yeah.
Yes.
I shouldn't expect the worst to happen. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like, what is it that, I mean.
There's this, I'm trying to block this.
Yeah, is it
Okay.
I mean, I don't think this is the channel where they will get much traffic from, like that. Yeah. But okay, so I can see like God creating Satan, and like you have free will, fine. I don't see why you would have to give him like this much power. Like, why give him control over the whole earth? Couldn't.
Your sound went out, Oskar. Your sound went out. Your sound. I don't hear you now. Maybe it's my headphone. Let me try. Can you say something? Can you say something? I don't know if I can hear you because you're not talking. Okay. All right. Hey, Titan Uranus says, porn bots, you need mods, bread of life. Yes, I know I need mods. I mean, it would be convenient if I had some, but honestly, I'm afraid that people would delete comments that I don't want deleted, because I tend to allow more negative comments than most people who are moderating would tolerate. So I just haven't done that, because I just don't want this to be a place where people's, ideas can't really be expressed. So that's why. And thank you all for being here. I'm just waiting for Oskar to come back. But so, hi, Dave. Top Dog, thank you. Glad Dapper Dinosaur was here. Elizabeth, Anam, Outsider Humanist, glad you stopped by. Patrick Alexander, Fuzz, Spartan Theology. Oh, what is this? Okay. So Voditas, Shemael, Zang. Good. Glad you stuck up. Glad you guys hung out. Roya, thanks for being here. And if you guys haven't seen the movie The Tree of Life, I just do recommend that you watch it. It is just so wonderful. You will be very touched. And Oskar is back. Yay! Okay.
I think my internet went out or something.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you were saying, why give Satan so much control?
Yeah, I mean, like, can he just do whatever he wants? Like, is there no point where God says, like, you don't get to have like superpowers anymore? Like, you don't get to have magnificent superpowers, like be the second strongest person in existence. Like, let's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a great question. I love that you asked this because this is how I think it works. Actually, I don't think Satan has that much of his own power, but I think that he gains power because we give him power. Because
Sorry,
actually,
it froze. I couldn't hear a
oh,
thing.
oh,
Do you
really?
mind? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I'll start over.
Yeah.
So, this is a great question, and like I don't think God gave Satan as much power as he actually has, because God actually gave humanity control of the world. God created, and he said, now you have dominion over the earth, right? So he gave humanity control of the earth. So the reason I think Satan has so much power is because he exploits our power and gets, like, he basically draws power from those who are giving it to him. Oh, it froze again. Darn. Wow. Lord, we need help.
I.
Okay,
Sorry.
are we back?
Yeah.
Are we back?
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't think Satan wants you to be able to tell me this.
I know, right?
He just
I
keeps
mean,
listening.
exactly. Okay, so what did you hear me say?
Like nothing. Like immediately it froze. Yeah.
What?
Oh wait. Okay. I heard he didn't give Satan power. He gave us power, which was
Now,
confusing because like there's no one there at the cliff when the kids fall down. So
okay.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
But so Satan has some of his own power, but I think he primarily gets things done through using our power, exploiting our power. And so and nobody has to be there on the edge of the cliff for that to happen, right? Like that, like it's kind of like, we have given over our power when we are choosing not to follow God's ways. Like when we are choosing to follow in, evil ways, that is contributing to Satan's power. So it's kind of like strengthening his power.
So I mean that seems like a superpower, right? Like every time someone does something bad, like if every time someone did something bad, I got stronger, that would be like a superpower. So I mean, maybe just like remove that superpower. Like I don't really get how is
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I don't think it's just Satan, because it's also, a lot of other dark powers, a lot of other spiritual forces, and I know this might just sound like all craziness to you.
No,
But
like I understand the picture. I mean, I just don't understand why he's giving them superpowers or something. Yeah, it's a bit strange to me. Like
yeah,
on cosmic dualism, like they're equally strong. The reason evil exists is because like, well, good can't just like remove it. Like he needs our help. Like the good, like oh, this is like a real battle. But like on Christianity, you just say God is like so infinitely much better. So then it gets confusing. Like, but why let these people have like superpowers if you can? Yeah.
well, because I think God did set it up so that other beings really have power. And so he's kind of like, if you were like playing a game, like let's say you wanted to play, football with a professional football player, right? But like it really wouldn't be a fun match if that professional football player just was using all of his power and forces against you, right? So maybe he would give
Yeah.
himself a handicap. Maybe he would, in some way limit his own power so that you would have power, right? So you would have a chance in the game. And so that's what I
Okay,
think
but
God is.
let's yeah. So I mean, let's say that like he ties his hands behind his back or something when we play football. But instead of like playing football, I begin like seriously harming people around there. Like at that point, I would think the football players like, yeah, I'm gonna get rid of this handcuff and like stop you now. Like
Yeah. And
yeah,
God hasn't done that. So that's really
I understand.
essentially the
Yeah,
problem of evil, right? That's the whole
yeah.
problem. Why hasn't God done that? But
Like
you know,
especially with
mhm.
Satan. Like I understand, like with people, it's like the important thing is the choice. But like with demons, like yeah, it just feels weird. It was like, wouldn't you think it was weird if like all child molesters could also teleport? You're like, why, God? Like why did He set it up so that like these horrible people have these like extra powers? It doesn't. Yeah, it's really
Mm,
strange. Why these people? Why? Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's one I don't think I really have an answer to. So,
It's
you
the
know,
it's my like detailed brain again. Like, but this
yeah.
exact yeah. Yeah.
And that's why,
I saw you. Yeah.
go ahead.
So I asked I saw your discussion. There was some like biologists and we were talking about the like evolution of the hand or something. And I thought it was really fun because it was exactly this thing where you're like, but can you explain like the whole hand? And the biologist is like me and just went into detail. It's like, yeah, exactly this part sort of works like this, and you're like, yeah, but like the whole hand, like yeah. It was really yeah. I see the same contrast there where you're like, but big picture, and it's like this little detail.
Yeah. Well, did you think the answer was sufficient? Did you think the
I mean,
small way of developing can explain the whole hand?
so I mean, I think it's a sort of a weird question. Yeah, it's like someone who traveled the world, and you're like, but how did you do it? They're like, I guess like on this day I sort of walked this path, and like on this day I did this. So you're like, no, but like tell me how you did the whole thing. I was like, I don't know how to do that. I can't just describe. Like I walked this path, and then I was, and I yeah. So I didn't think his answer was like the whole thing, but the whole thing is like mega complex. It's so much stuff. And I think he did his best. He was like, I can tell you some of the steps, I guess, but obviously telling you the whole thing would be like years.
Right. And so for me, when I hear, someone say, but this happened and here are the little steps, it's like me hearing someone say that they traveled the whole world, that they went around the whole world, but there were no airplanes, no cars, nothing
Yeah,
involved, but they somehow got around the whole world, right?
yeah.
Because
But
that's how
it's so this sort
ridiculous
of
it sounds. Yeah.
yeah, but it would be funny like if you could check like each like every time you're like, okay, but I'm gonna check like okay, he was in the whole world. Let's check if he was like in Tokyo in this area. And like every time you check, you're like, okay, he was actually here. Like okay. And then you just like keep finding like when you drill down to like specific points, you're like, okay, this actually he was actually here. Like eventually like yeah, I
Mm.
don't know how he was everywhere, but like every time I zoom in somewhere, like there's like a bunch of studies written on it. Yeah. Yeah. But I
Hmm.
understand, like from your view, it's like big picture. This just seems insane, and like I get that intuition. Um,
Mm.
this is really complicated.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else that was on your mind to talk about?
uh, we didn't talk about Dumbledore. Were you surprised about that pick?
Yeah. So, can you explain to everybody why you're bringing up
Yeah.
Dumbledore?
So originally, I think Rebecca was like, "Here's like my favorite movie. Like, what is your favorite movie depicting God?" And like, I don't really have any movies like that. I'm not. I don't watch these artsy films, I guess. Uh, but eventually, I was like, yeah, I grew up with Harry Potter. I grew up with those stories. Dumbledore always seemed like the kind of person I would imagine God to be. He's like wise, but also powerful, but also has this like tingle in his eye, and it's yeah, and it's all about love. Yeah, I really like Dumbledore. Like he's a fantastic yeah character. He
Hmm.
was like God-like. He wasn't like he's not representing God really. I don't think. I mean, you can't say
Yeah.
that. But yeah.
Wow.
Does that seem really strange to you, or like that's not a
No.
God-like person at all?
No, not at all. But I like I told you, it's been years. I have watched the first Harry Potter movie, but I mean, it's been so many years. I wouldn't like even remember who Dumbledore was. But you know, as I'm hearing your description, I can see very much how you can see God in him as a figure. And you know, there's a lot of movies that I often see God. Actually, there's another movie that has Sean Penn in it, you know, because Sean Penn was in the Tree of Life. There's another movie with Sean Penn, and Sean Penn to me is the God figure in that movie. It's The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, the Ben Stiller one. Okay, well, that's another one that I absolutely love, and I think Sean Penn is like God in that movie. But I mean, of course, you know, it's not intended to be that way. As you know, the Tree of Life symbolism I think is very intentional, but you know, for The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, I'm just drawing that meaning out myself. So
yeah. I mean, it's hard to like put actually God in a movie. It sort of becomes, it's a harder task. Like people want God to be like this ephemeral, like beyond our imagination. So, yeah, it's weird. We're like, this is God person.
Well, and that's why I think Terrence Malick did such a brilliant job, is because I really do think he captured God's nature in this movie without making it like cheesy or, you know, like he did a beautiful job.
Yeah.
Dave says George Burns, John Denver in Oh God, favorite God movie. I feel like I've seen scenes from that, but I don't remember if I've seen the whole thing. Yeah. Anyway, well, thanks everybody for being here for the discussion. Hope you guys do go watch Tree of Life and enjoy it. And wait a minute, I just saw another person in the chat that anyway. Okay, have a great day, everyone. Bye.